When I tried to open the refrigerator in my own kitchen, she slapped my hand away, just like that, as if I were a naughty child stealing candy. The sound echoed in the silence of the early morning, and for a moment, I could not believe what had just happened. I stood paralyzed, staring at my reddened hand, feeling a physical sting that was nothing compared to the humiliation I felt inside. Linda looked at me with those eyes full of contempt, as if I were an annoying insect in her path, and said with an icy voice I will never forget, "Where do you think you are going without permission?" I could not answer. The words got stuck in my throat. I felt like my own house had become a prison where I was the intruder. And then I heard the voice of Michael, my son, the boy I carried in my womb for 9 months, the one I nursed, the one I cared for every night when he had a fever, saying something that split my soul in two. "My wife owns the house now."
You need to ask her for permission even to breathe. At that moment, my world collapsed. Not because of the slap, not because of her words, but because my own son was betraying me. I felt as if the floor opened up beneath my feet and swallowed me whole. I was 62 years old and never imagined I would end up like this, being humiliated in my own home, the same one I built with so much effort alongside my late husband. The walls that once echoed with laughter and love now seemed to close in on me, suffocating me. I looked at Michael, searching for some trace of the son I knew, but what I saw was a stranger, a man completely dominated with empty eyes, repeating his wife's words as if they were a sacred commandment. I wondered at what moment I lost him, at what moment he stopped being my boy to become the puppet of this woman. Linda crossed her arms over her chest and smiled. That smile had nothing human about it. It was pure, distilled cruelty. "Now go back to your room, Emily," she said, using my name as if it were an insult. "And the next time you are hungry, you ask me politely. There are rules here, and you are going to follow them. Understood?" I nodded, because I could not do anything else. My legs were trembling, and I felt that if I opened my mouth, only a broken sob would come out. I turned around and walked toward my room, feeling their stares stuck in my back like knives. Every step weighed on me, as if I were carrying the entire world on my shoulders. I closed my bedroom door and let myself fall onto the bed. Tears began to roll down my cheeks uncontrollably. I cried in silence, biting my lips so as not to make noise because I needed permission even to cry in my own house. My stomach roared with hunger, but the emotional pain was much stronger than any physical need. How had I reached this point? How did I allow this to happen? The questions tortured me while I looked at the ceiling of my room, that ceiling I painted myself years ago when my husband was still alive. I felt like a stranger in my own life, as if someone had stolen my existence and left me with only an empty shell. I thought about David, my late husband, and wondered what he would say if he could see this. He was always a man of principles, a man who never would have allowed anyone to treat me like this. He would have confronted Michael. He would have made him see reason. But David had been 6 feet under for 3 years, and I was completely alone in this nightmare. I remembered the night Michael called me 6 months ago with that desperate voice no mother can ignore. "Mom, I need your help," he said. "Linda and I are going through a hard time. I lost my job and we cannot pay the rent. Could we stay with you just for a while? I promise it will be temporary." How was I going to refuse?
He was my son, my only son, the most important person in my life after David. Of course I said yes. Of course I opened the doors of my house without thinking twice. I never imagined I was inviting the devil into my home. At first, everything seemed normal, Linda was polite, even pleasant. She helped me with some chores around the house, smiled when I looked at her, called me mother-in-law with apparent affection. Michael seemed relieved to have a roof over his head and constantly promised that he would soon find a job and they would leave. "It is only temporary, Mom," he repeated every week. But weeks turned into months, and I began to notice small changes. Linda started reorganizing my kitchen without asking for permission. She moved my pots to places where I could not reach them easily. She changed the bathroom towels for ones she bought, leaving mine stored in a drawer as if they were trash. Small invasions that I ignored because I did not want to cause conflicts. Then she started with the suggestions. "Emily, do you not think it would be better if you had dinner earlier? Michael and I need privacy at night." "Oh, Emily, try not to make so much noise in the morning. You wake us up." Every suggestion was a disguised order, and I, like a fool, obeyed to keep the peace. Michael never said anything. When I tried to talk to him about Linda's behavior, he simply shrugged his shoulders and said, "She is stressed about the economic situation, Mom. Give her time." It was always, give her time. It was always, have patience. It was always me who had to yield. One day, Linda decided my television schedule was inappropriate because she wanted to watch her shows. Another day, she determined that I could not use the washing machine on weekends because it was her time to wash their clothes. And Michael nodded to everything like an obedient dog following orders from his master. But nothing prepared me for what would come next. Nothing prepared me for the moment when my own house would stop being mine, and I would become a prisoner in the place where I spent the best years of my life. The storm was barely beginning, and I had no idea that the worst was yet to come. Everything began to change for real 3 months ago, when Linda announced during dinner that she had made some important decisions to improve coexistence in the house. I remember she placed the silverware on the table with a sharp thud that made me jump in my chair. Michael looked at her with that expression of sickly adoration that turned my stomach. "Starting tomorrow," Linda said, with a voice so firm she seemed to be leading a corporate meeting, "we are going to establish clear rules. This house needs order and discipline." I looked at her without understanding, waiting for Michael to intervene, to say something, anything. But he only nodded, as if all that made perfect sense. "Rules?" I asked, timidly, feeling my voice tremble. "Linda, this is my house. I do not understand why we need rules." She looked at me as if I had just said the stupidest thing in the world. She sighed with exasperation and crossed her arms. That gesture I already knew, and meant she was about to say something unpleasant. "Precisely for that reason we need rules, Emily. Because this is your house, and you have let it become chaos. Michael and I cannot live like this. If we're going to stay here, things will be done my way." The way she pronounced "my way" froze my blood. She was not suggesting, she was imposing, and Michael was still sitting there in silence, betraying me with his indifference. The next day, a list appeared stuck on the refrigerator. A long list written in Linda's perfect handwriting, detailing everything I could and could not do in my own house. I read every line, feeling indignation growing in my chest like a wild animal wanting to get out. Kitchen schedule. Emily can use the kitchen only between 8 in the morning and between 2 and 3 in the afternoon. Outside those times, the kitchen is Linda's exclusive territory. Exclusive territory in my own house. I kept reading with trembling hands. Bathroom use. Emily must shower before 7 in the morning or after 10 at night so as not to interfere with the couple's routine. My lifelong routine, the shower I took every morning at 8 while listening to the news on the radio, no longer mattered. I had to adapt to them. Living room use. Friday and Saturday nights are exclusive for Michael and Linda. Emily must remain in her room after 8 in the evening.
They were banishing me to my room as if I were an old piece of furniture bothering everyone in the living room. The list continued with more than 20 points, each one more absurd and humiliating than the last. I ripped the list off the refrigerator with so much force that I tore a corner. I went straight to the room where Michael and Linda were still sleeping. I knocked on the door insistently, feeling rage running through my veins like boiling lava. Michael, I need to talk to you right now. Linda opened the door, wearing a pink silk robe I had never seen, probably bought with the money I gave Michael for his expenses. She looked at me with annoyance, as if I were a bothersome salesperson interrupting her morning. "What is wrong, Emily? We were sleeping." "This," I said, shaking the list in front of her face, "this is what is wrong. Who do you think you are to set rules in my house?" My voice came out louder than I intended. Years of accumulated frustration, finally finding an exit. Behind Linda, Michael appeared, rubbing his eyes, disheveled and confused. "Mom, what is going on?" he asked with that child's voice he used when he wanted to avoid trouble. But he was no longer a child.
He was a 35-year-old man who had chosen his wife over his mother. And that choice was destroying me little by little. What is going on is that your wife has put a list of rules on my refrigerator as if this were her house and I were an unwanted guest. Are you going to allow this, Michael? Are you really going to allow her to treat me like this? I looked at him pleadingly, searching for some trace of the loving son who used to defend his mother from anything. Linda stepped forward before Michael could answer. "Those rules are necessary, Emily. You cannot keep living as if you were alone. Now there are 3 people in this house, and we need organization. Or do you prefer we continue living in disorder?" "Disorder?" I repeated in disbelief. "I lived in this house for 40 years with my husband, and there was never disorder. The disorder arrived when you 2 arrived." The words left my mouth before I could stop them, raw and honest. I saw Linda's face harden, her eyes narrowing like those of a snake ready to strike. "Michael," she said without stopping, looking at me, "tell your mother that if she does not like the rules, maybe she should look for another place to live." The silence that followed was deafening. I waited for Michael to explode, to tell his wife she was completely crazy, that this was his mother's house, and nobody was going to kick her out. But Michael only sighed, ran a hand through his hair, and said, "Mom, Linda is right. The rules will help us all get along better. It is not a big deal. They are just some schedules." I felt as if I had been punched in the stomach. My own son was taking her side, validating this madness, turning me into the villain of my own story. "It is not a big deal," I whispered, feeling tears beginning to sting my eyes. "Michael, you are taking my house from me. You are taking my life from me. How can you not see it?" I extended my hand toward him, an instinctive maternal gesture, seeking to reconnect with my son. But he took a step back, moving away from me, choosing distance. "You are exaggerating, Mom. Nobody is taking anything from you. We are just trying to make this work for everyone. If we could leave, we would have done it already, but we have no money. We need you to be understanding." Understanding. That word became the mantra Michael would repeat during the following months, every time I tried to defend myself. Linda smiled with satisfaction, knowing she had won. "I'm glad you understand. Michael, your mother needs to learn that things have changed." She turned around and went back into the room, leaving me standing there with my son, feeling the abyss between us becoming bigger and impossible to cross. "How can you let her manipulate you like this?" I asked him in a low voice, a last attempt to make him react. "Your father would be very disappointed to see you like this." Michael turned into a man without a backbone. I know they were harsh words, but it was the truth, and someone had to tell him. Michael's face hardened. "Do not bring Dad into this. He is not here, and you have no idea what he would think. Linda is my wife, and I am going to support her.
If you cannot respect that, then we have a problem. He turned his back on me and closed the door in my face. Literally, the sound of that door closing resonated in my chest like the closing of a coffin. I stood there in the hallway with the crumpled list still in my hand, feeling my world crumble. I had lost my son. I had lost him to a manipulative woman who had found the perfect victim. An insecure, unemployed, vulnerable man, easy to control. I went back to my room, dragging my feet, feeling suddenly like a 100-year-old woman. I sat on the edge of my bed and looked at the photographs on my nightstand.
David and I on our wedding day, young and full of dreams. Michael as a baby, chubby and smiling in my arms. A family photo on the beach, everyone laughing under the sun. When did everything break? From that day on, I followed the rules. Not because I agreed, but because I had no strength to fight. Every morning, I woke up at 6 to shower before the prohibited time. I cooked in the narrow margins of time Linda had assigned me. I locked myself in my room on Friday and Saturday nights like a prisoner serving a sentence. And the worst of all was seeing Michael every day, walking past him in the hallways of my house without recognizing him. The son I raised, the boy who used to hug me and tell me I was the best mom in the world, now looked at me as if I were an obstacle in his life. Linda had transformed him completely, and I did not know how to get him back. The following weeks were a silent nightmare. Every day, Linda found new ways to remind me I was no longer the owner of my own life. She started reorganizing the whole house according to her taste, without consulting me, as if my 40 years living here meant absolutely nothing. One day, I arrived from grocery shopping and discovered she had moved all the living room furniture. My favorite armchair, the one where David and I used to sit to watch movies on Sunday nights, was now cornered against the wall, almost hidden behind a huge plant she had bought. In its place, a new gray sofa occupied the center of the room. "I bought it with the money Michael saved," she said when she saw me looking with my mouth open. We both knew Michael did not have a job, that the money came from my pension, but she dared to lie to my face. "You did not consult me," I said, trying to keep calm, although I felt my chest burning with indignation. "You could have asked me before changing everything." Linda did not even look up from her cell phone. She was sitting on her new sofa with her legs crossed, painting her nails an intense red color that reminded me of blood. "I don't need your permission to improve this house, Emily. It was old and depressing. Now at least it has some style." The contemptuous way she said old and depressing hit me like a slap. She was not talking only about the furniture. She was talking about me, about my life, about everything David and I built together. I tried to talk to Michael that night, but he already had his automatic response ready. "Mom, the old sofa was very worn out. Linda is just trying to make the house prettier. You should thank her instead of complaining." Thank her for spending my money on things I did not ask for erasing the memories of my husband from this house, for transforming my home into something unrecognizable. But that was just the beginning. Linda started inviting her friends to the house without warning me. They arrived in a group, loud and invasive, occupying the living room as if it were a public cafe. I locked myself in my room, listening to their laughter and conversations, feeling like a stranger in my own space. Once I came out to go to the bathroom, and one of them looked me up and down with evident contempt. "Is she your mother-in-law?" she asked Linda in a tone she did not bother to lower.
Poor thing. It must be hard living as a guest at your age. Her friends laughed, and I felt humiliation burning me inside. Linda said nothing to defend me. She only smiled and changed the subject, leaving me standing there like a fool. While they all ignored me, she started controlling what I ate.
She said I needed to go on a diet, that at my age I should take better care of myself. She eliminated from the pantry everything I liked. The oatmeal cookies I ate with my coffee in the mornings, the chocolate I kept for difficult moments, even the strawberry jam David used to buy me every month. "Those things have too much sugar, Emily. They are not healthy," she said, while filling the shelves with her expensive organic products that I ended up paying for. When I dared to buy something for myself, something small that gave me even a moment of happiness, Linda found it and threw it in the trash. "I told you no sugars, Emily. Why do you not listen to me?" And Michael, my own son, nodded as if she were doing me a favor, as if controlling every aspect of my life were an act of love and not cruelty. One afternoon, I decided to cook the stew Michael had always liked. That recipe my mother taught me and that had been in our family for generations. I wanted to recover even a moment of connection with my son, remind him of the days when we were a happy family. I spent the whole afternoon in the kitchen during my small window of permitted time, putting all my love into that dish. When I served dinner, Linda smelled the stew and wrinkled her nose with disgust. "What is this? It smells terrible." My heart shrank. "It is Michael's favorite stew," I said, attempting to smile. "He used to love it when he was a boy." I looked at Michael, hoping he would remember, that he would say something nice, that he would give me even a crumb of affection. But Linda spoke first. "Michael does not eat that kind of heavy food anymore. We are watching our diet, remember? Besides, I had already prepared salads for dinner." She pointed toward the refrigerator, where, effectively, there were 2 salads perfectly arranged in glass containers. Just 2 salads, one for her, one for Michael, none for me. "I ate in my permitted time," she added, with that fake smile I hated so much. "I did not know you were going to cook, although you should have warned me. The rules say you must coordinate with me before using the kitchen outside your schedule." It was not true. I had cooked exactly in my assigned time. But arguing with her was useless. She always found a way to make me look like the guilty one. Michael did not even taste the stew. He ate his salad in silence while I looked at the pot full of food that no one was going to eat. All that afternoon wasted, all that love rejected. That night, I threw the stew in the trash and cried over the sink, trying not to make noise so they wouldn't hear me. The days turned into an endless cycle of small humiliations that accumulated like stones on my chest. Linda criticized my clothes, saying I dressed like an old woman and that I was embarrassing when we went out together. She criticized my way of speaking, my way of walking, my way of existing. And Michael never said anything, never defended me, only nodded or looked away. He stopped calling me Mom. Now he only said Emily, with that impersonal tone you use with an acquaintance, not with the woman who gave you life. Every time I heard my name in his mouth, without that Mom in front, I felt I died a little inside. Linda had managed to erase even that, even the most sacred bond between a mother and her son. I started to be afraid in my own house, afraid of making noise, afraid of taking up space, afraid of breathing too loud. I walked on tiptoe through the hallways like a ghost, trying not to bother, not to exist too much. My own presence had become something undesirable, and I was shrinking every day more, making myself smaller, disappearing. One night, I heard Linda talking on the phone with someone. Her voice went through the thin walls of my house. "Do not worry, I almost have her where I want her," she said, laughing. "It is only a matter of time before she decides to leave herself, and when that happens, this house will be completely ours." Michael already signed the papers I gave him. The fool did not even read them. My blood froze. What papers? What was she talking about? I stayed glued to the wall of my room, holding my breath, trying to hear more. Yes, the lawyer said that with that signature, it is enough. When she leaves or something happens, Michael inherits everything automatically, and I, as his wife, will have rights over everything. That stupid old woman does not even imagine what is coming. I felt nauseous. Linda was not only taking my house for me while I was alive, she was planning to keep everything legally. And Michael, my naive and manipulated son, had signed something without even consulting me. The level of betrayal was so deep I could not process it. My own son was helping to rob me, although he probably didn't even know it. The next day, I tried to talk to Michael about what I had heard. Son, I need you to tell me the truth. Did you sign any document recently? Something related to the house or inheritance? He looked at me confused for a second, then uncomfortable. Linda asked me to sign some papers from the lawyer. She said it was to protect us legally in case something happened to you, to make everything easier. And you did not think to consult me? I asked, feeling my voice break. You did not think that maybe I should know about documents that have to do with my house? Michael shrugged, that gesture of indifference he had perfected in these months. Linda said it was normal, that all families do this. I did not want to bother you with legal nonsense. Legal nonsense? My heritage? My home? My entire life reduced to legal nonsense. Michael, your wife is manipulating you. She is planning to keep everything. Do you not see it? But before he could answer, Linda appeared, as she always appeared, at the exact moment to interfere, filling Michael's head with nonsense again. Emily, do you not get tired of creating problems? She looked at me with those cold and calculating eyes. Michael, tell your mother to stop inventing conspiracies. She's paranoid because of her age. And Michael, like the perfect puppet he had become, looked at me and said, Mom, Linda is right. You're seeing problems where there are none. At that moment, I knew I had lost my son completely. There was no way to make him see the truth. Linda had built a wall so solid between us that my words no longer reached him. I was trapped in a nightmare from which there was no visible escape. Things got worse in ways I never imagined possible. Linda started controlling even the air I breathed in my own house. She decided my room needed renovation, and one day, while I was at the bank collecting my pension, she went in and took out all my things.
When I returned, I found boxes piled in the hallway, and my most precious belongings thrown without any care. What did you do? I shouted, when seeing her come out of my room with a bag full of my photographs. Those are my things. You cannot touch them. Linda did not even flinch. She left the bag on the floor and dusted off her hands as if she had been handling trash. Relax, Emily. I am just organizing. Your room was a disaster, full of old junk that nobody needs. I opened one of the boxes and my heart broke into 1,000 pieces. There were the love letters David wrote me during our courtship, the drawings Michael made in kindergarten, the shawl my mother knitted for me before dying. Everything crumpled and mixed with old clothes without any respect, without any care. These things are my life, I said, with tears rolling down my cheeks. They are not junk. They are my memories. Well, your memories take up too much space, Linda responded, crossing her arms. Besides, I need that closet for my clothes. Ours, in the master bedroom, is already full. Our master bedroom, the main room that had been mine and David's for decades, was now theirs. And now they also wanted my closet, my space, everything I had left. I do not plan to give you my closet, I said, trying to sound firm although my whole body was trembling. You already have the master bedroom, the big bathroom, half the house. My room is the only thing I have left. Linda smiled. That snake smile I already knew. Well, then I guess these boxes will stay here in the hallway. It would be a shame if someone tripped over them and got hurt. It was a veiled threat. If I did not yield, she would destroy my things, throw them away, make them disappear. I saw it in her eyes, that calculated cruelty she had perfected. I swallowed hard and nodded defeated. It is fine.
You can use the closet. Her smile widened. I knew you would see reason, Emily. You see, when you cooperate, everything is easier. That night, I put my most precious memories in a small shoebox that I hid under my bed. David's letters, photos of baby Michael, the engagement ring I no longer wore because Linda said it was old-fashioned. Everything left of my previous life now fit in a box I had to hide, as if I were a criminal. Linda started inviting Michael to go out without me, something they had never done before. Let's go to the movies, she would say, taking Michael by the arm, just the two of us.
We need couple time, and they left, leaving me alone in the house, in my house, feeling like an intruder who should be grateful they allowed me to stay. When they returned, they always brought takeout food, but only for the two of them. The smell of pizza or fried chicken filled the house while I was in my room with an empty stomach, wondering at what moment my life had become this. Once, Michael knocked on my door and offered me a piece of pizza. We brought extra in case you were hungry. Before I could accept, I heard Linda's voice from the living room. Michael, come here. That pizza is for tomorrow's lunch. You cannot go around giving it away. And Michael, as always, obeyed. He shrugged and told me sorry before closing my door. He did not even have the courage to stay, to face his wife, to choose me, even for once. The humiliations became part of my daily routine. Linda started leaving me lists of chores to do. Wash her clothes, clean her bathroom, cook her favorite meals. When I protested, she said it was the least I could do since I lived for free in the house. Free? In my own house, which I paid for with money from my work for years. One day, I dared to refuse. I am not going to wash your clothes, Linda. I am not your maid. Her face transformed into a mask of fury. Oh, no? Well, then I want you to pay me rent. If you are not going to contribute with work, contribute with money. $500 a month for your room. $500? I repeated incredulously. This is my house. I do not have to pay you anything. Linda got close to me. So close I could smell her expensive perfume, the one she bought with my money. This house will be Michael someday, and Michael is my husband, so technically, I have as much right as you. Now, you wash my clothes, or you pay me. I did not have $500 extra. My pension barely covered the house bills, food, and the expenses Linda generated constantly. So I washed her clothes, hating myself with every garment I put in the washing machine, hating my cowardice, my inability to defend myself, my fear of being completely alone. Michael finally found a job, but it was a part-time job that barely paid $800 a month. I thought maybe that would change things, maybe now they could leave and I would get my house back, my life. But instead of looking for their own place, Linda announced that money would be used to improve the house even more. They bought a huge television for the living room, a very expensive set of pots, new curtains for all the windows, all with that money that supposedly was so they could become independent. And when do you plan to move? I asked them one night during dinner. The question floated in the air like a bomb about to explode. Linda stopped eating and stared at me. Move? Why would we move, Emily? We're perfect here. Besides, you need us. You are an older woman living alone. It is dangerous. You should be grateful we are here to take care of you. Take care of me? They were destroying me little by little, and they called it care? I do not need you, I said with the firmest voice I could manage. I lived alone 3 years after David died, and I was perfectly fine. You said it was temporary, Michael finally spoke, but his words were worse than his silence. Mom, don't be selfish. Linda is right. At your age, you should not be alone. Besides, it's my house too. Or did you already forget I'm your son? Selfish? He called me selfish for wanting my own house back, for wanting to live without having every movement controlled, every breath. I felt something inside me break definitively. That something that had been sustaining me, that hope that Michael would eventually wake up and see what they were doing to his mother. You're right, I said, getting up from the table. It is your house too. Someday it will be all yours. I hope it's worth it. I left my plate unfinished and went to my room.
I heard Linda telling Michael, "Your mother is so dramatic, always making scenes." And Michael laughed. My son laughed at my pain. I started avoiding them. I came out of my room only when it was absolutely necessary. I ate as little as possible so as not to have to use the kitchen during their schedules. I became a ghost in my own house, invisible, silent, non-existent. And even so, Linda found ways to remind me I was the problem.
"Emily, your presence makes Michael tense," she told me one day. "Could you try to be less evident when you are in the common areas? Try not to draw attention." Less evident? They wanted me to disappear completely, to stop existing for their comfort. One afternoon, while I was cleaning the bathroom in my assigned time, I found papers hidden behind the mirror, legal documents with Michael and Linda's names. I read them with trembling hands and confirmed my worst suspicions. Linda had made Michael sign a broad power of attorney, documents giving her control over medical and financial decisions, and even over the house if something happened to me. There was also a document pretending to be a care agreement where I supposedly accepted that they stay in the house in exchange for taking care of me in my old age. The document had my signature, but I had never signed it. It was a crude forgery, but probably enough to create legal problems if someone questioned it. My head was spinning. Linda was not only taking my house and my son, she was preparing the legal ground to keep everything. She was a calculating scammer, and Michael was her unwitting accomplice. Or maybe not so unwitting. I no longer knew what to think of my own son. I put the documents exactly where I found them. I could not confront them yet because I did not know what to do. I had no money for a lawyer. I had no one to turn to. My family had died or lived far away. My friends had drifted away these months because Linda always found excuses for me not to go out. I was completely alone and trapped. That night, while lying in my bed, looking at the ceiling, I thought about David. I thought about how he would have handled this situation. David was a man of action, not words. He never would have allowed anyone to humiliate us like this. And at that moment, lying in the darkness of my prison, something changed inside me. A spark of rage, of dignity, of strength, I believed, lost forever. I still did not know how, but I was going to get my life back. I was going to get my house back, and if that meant losing Michael in the process, then maybe I had already lost him a long time ago. Maybe the son I knew died the day he decided to choose a cruel woman over his own mother. The night of the incident at the refrigerator arrived as the straw that broke the camel's back. It had been an especially difficult day. Linda had made me clean the whole house because she would receive visitors the next day. Friends of hers who would come for tea as if my living room were a social hall she owned. I spent hours scrubbing floors, dusting furniture, organizing every corner until my knees and back hurt. When I finished, it was almost 11 at night. Linda inspected my work with a critical eye, running her finger along the window frames, looking for dust, as if she were a ruthless supervisor. "I suppose it is acceptable," she said finally, without even looking at me. "You can go to sleep," as if she were giving me permission to rest in my own house after cleaning for her guests. I went to my room exhausted, but I could not sleep. My stomach roared with hunger. I had eaten almost nothing all day because Linda had used the kitchen the whole time, preparing elegant snacks for her meeting the next day. My assigned schedules had been ignored completely, but I said nothing because I had already learned that protesting only made things worse. Around 2 in the morning, the hunger was unbearable. I thought at that hour, everyone would be asleep, and I could go down quietly to look for something to eat, just a piece of bread, a little cheese, whatever, to calm the emptiness in my stomach. I got up carefully, put on my slippers, and left my room walking on tiptoe, like a thief in my own house.
The kitchen was dark and silent. I breathed relieved, thinking I had managed to go down without waking anyone. I approached the refrigerator and put my hand on the handle. It was at that moment, just when I started to open it, that I felt the blow. A dry and strong slap on my hand that made me let go immediately from the pain and surprise. "Where do you think you are going without permission?" Linda's voice came out of the darkness like the hiss of a snake. She turned on the kitchen light, and there she was, with her pink silk robe and an expression of fury on her face. My hand burned where she had hit me, but the physical pain was nothing compared to the humiliation I felt. "I am hungry," I said with a voice barely audible. "I just wanted to eat something." I hated myself for sounding so weak, so pleading.
Linda crossed her arms and blocked the refrigerator with her body, as if it were a treasure she had to protect from a thief. "At 2 in the morning, without asking me for permission, I already told you that food in this house is managed. Emily, you cannot come eat whenever you feel like it. It is my refrigerator," I whispered, feeling tears beginning to accumulate in my eyes. "My food, my house." But even as I said those words, I knew they sounded hollow, powerless. Linda laughed, a cruel laugh that echoed in the silent kitchen. "Your house. We will see about that." I heard footsteps on the stairs, and Michael appeared disheveled and with sleepy eyes. "What is going on? Why are you shouting?" I looked at my son with hope, thinking maybe this time, this one time, he would defend me, that he would see the absurdity of the situation. An elderly mother being slapped for trying to eat in her own house. "Your mother was trying to steal food from the refrigerator without permission," Linda said before I could speak. "I have explained the rules to her 1,000 times, but she does not listen." Steal? She had called me a thief in my own kitchen? I looked at Michael pleadingly, waiting for him to say something. Anything. "Mom," Michael said with a tired sigh, "is it necessary to do this in the middle of the night? You know the rules. If you are hungry, you could have waited until tomorrow." My legs started to tremble. My own son was blaming me for being hungry, for wanting to eat in my own house, for existing. "Michael, please." My voice broke. "It is ridiculous. She slapped me for trying to open the refrigerator. Do you not see how sick this is?" I extended my hand, showing him the red mark that was starting to form. "Look at me, son. Look at me and tell me this is okay." But Michael did not look at my hand. Instead, he looked at Linda, who gave him a significant look I could not decipher. And then my son said the words that would shatter any hope I had left. "My wife owns the house now. You need to ask her for permission even to breathe." The world stopped. Even to breathe. The words floated in the air like sharp knives, stabbing into my heart again and again. My son had just told me I had no right even to the air I breathed without his wife's permission in my own house. The house I built with his father, the house where he was born, where he took his first steps, where I grew as a mother. Linda smiled triumphantly. She had won completely. She had taken my son and turned him into her weapon against me. "You see, Emily, even Michael understands how things work now. The faster you accept it, the better for everyone." She approached the refrigerator, opened it calmly, and took out a bottle of water. She drank in front of me slowly, savoring not only the water, but her victory. "Now go to your room," she ordered, closing the refrigerator, "and the next time you are hungry in unauthorized hours, hold it or ask for permission properly." Michael nodded, supporting her. "Mom, go to sleep. We will talk tomorrow." But I knew tomorrow we would not talk about anything. Tomorrow would be the same as today, and the next day too. I went up the stairs, feeling every step cost me a piece of my soul. I entered my room and closed the door. I sat on the edge of my bed, and it was there, in the darkness of my prison, where finally everything changed. Something inside me broke, but not in the way they expected. I did not break in defeat. I broke in clarity. I saw my life with brutal sharpness. I saw I had been begging for love, begging for respect, begging for a place in my own house. I had allowed them to reduce me to nothing, to turn me into a pleading shadow, and all out of fear. Fear of losing Michael, fear of being alone,
fear of admitting my son was no longer the boy I knew. But that night, with my hands still burning from the slap, with an empty stomach and a shattered heart, I made a decision, a cold, clear, and definitive decision. I was not going to beg anymore. I was not going to plead anymore. I was not going to allow them to treat me like trash in my own house. I got up and turned on the light in my room. I searched under my bed for the box where I kept my most precious things. Inside, there was a little money I had been saving in secret, bills of $20 and $50 I hid whenever I could. It was not much, maybe $300 in total, but it was something. I also took out an old notebook and started writing. I wrote everything that had happened in these months, every humiliation, every abuse.
Every moment, Michael chose Linda over me. I did not know what that record would serve me for, but something told me I should document everything. While I wrote, tears fell on the paper, staining some words. But I did not stop. I wrote until my hand hurt, until I emptied all the poison accumulated in my chest. And when I finished, when there were no more words to write, I knew exactly what I had to do. I was not going to confront them. I was not going to fight. I was not going to give them the show of seeing me broken and pleading once more. I was going to do something they would never expect from me. Something that would hurt them much more than any scream or claim. I was going to leave. I was going to disappear from their lives and leave them with exactly what they wanted, the house without me. I did not sleep the rest of the night. I stayed sitting on my bed, watching through the window how the dark sky slowly transformed into a gray dawn. Every minute that passed, my decision became more solid, clearer. There were no doubts anymore. There was no fear anymore. Only a cold and definitive certainty. I had to get out of there before they destroyed me completely. At 6 o'clock in the morning, when I heard Michael and Linda getting up, I went into action. I waited for them to enter the bathroom and locked my door. I took out an old suitcase from the closet, the one David and I used on our last trip together to the beach. I ran my fingers over the worn surface, remembering better days. Days where love and respect were not a luxury, but something natural. I packed the essentials, clothes for a week, my personal documents, the photographs I kept in the shoebox, David's letters. Everything that really mattered fit in a small suitcase. 40 years of life reduced to a few objects I could carry alone. I realized that everything else, the furniture, the appliances, the material things, meant nothing without dignity. I kept the money I had saved in my purse, along with my medications and the house keys. I looked around my room for the last time. Those walls had witnessed so many important moments. Nights of caring for Michael when he was a baby, late-night conversations with David planning our future, tears shed after his death.
Now they were just walls enclosing my suffering. I heard Michael and Linda going down to eat breakfast. Perfect. I heard them arguing about what to eat, heard Linda giving orders and Michael obeying. That morning ritual that had excluded me completely. I waited a few more minutes until, being sure they were busy in the kitchen, I grabbed my suitcase and my purse. I breathed deep. This was the moment. I opened my door slowly, grateful the hinges made no noise. I walked down the hallway toward the stairs with my heart beating so fast I thought they would hear me, but they were too absorbed in their world, in their bubble where I did not exist. I went down the stairs step by step, holding my breath. The main door was only a few meters away. A few more steps and I would be free. But just before leaving, I stopped. I could not just leave. They needed to know this time was different, that it was not a tantrum or drama. It was a final decision. I left my suitcase by the door and went to the hall table where we always left the mail. I took a sheet of paper and a pen from my purse. My hand trembled slightly, but my mind was completely clear. I began to write with firm and calm handwriting. Michael and Linda, I am leaving. Do not try to look for me. The house is all yours now, just as you wanted. Enjoy everything you desired so much to take from me. But remember that a house without love is just an empty building. We will see how long it takes for that truth to reach you. The taxes are due next month. They are $1,200. Water and electricity are paid at the bank every 15th. The heating needs maintenance before winter. It costs around $300. I hope Michael's part-time job is enough to cover everything. Emily. I reread the letter. It was perfect. Short, cold, informative. No tears, no pleas, no drama, just facts. I left it in the center of the table where they could not miss it. Then I grabbed my suitcase and opened the main door. The fresh morning air hit my face like a slap of reality. I did not look back. If I did, if I saw my house one more time, I might waver. I closed the door behind me with a soft click and walked down the path toward the street. Every step I felt lighter, as if I were leaving behind not only a house, but invisible chains that had been choking me. I did not have a specific plan, but I did have a place to go. Sarah, my childhood friend, lived on the other side of town. We had drifted apart the last few months because Linda always made excuses when I wanted to visit her. That Michael needed me, that there were things to do in the house, that it was dangerous for me to go out alone. Now I understood it was just another way to isolate me, to cut me off from any outside support. I walked 3 blocks to the bus stop. The sun was rising completely now, painting the sky orange and pink colors. It was beautiful, and I realized it had been months since I stopped to see a sunrise. I had been so consumed by survival inside that house that I had forgotten a world existed outside. The bus arrived, and I got on. The driver looked at me curiously, seeing my suitcase, but said nothing. I sat next to the window and watched the streets of my neighborhood pass in front of me. I knew every corner, every store, every tree.
I had lived there all my adult life. I was leaving behind not only a house, but an entire life. But strangely, I did not feel sadness. I felt something similar to peace, like when you take off a shoe that has been hurting you all day, and finally your feet can breathe. The constant oppression, the perpetual fear, the daily humiliation, all that was staying behind with every mile the bus traveled. I arrived at Sarah's house after 40 minutes. It was a modest but cozy house, with flowers in the front garden and a rocking chair on the porch. Sarah had always had good taste for making any space feel like home. I rang the doorbell, feeling nervous for the first time since I left. What if she did not want to receive me? What if she thought I was crazy? The door opened, and there was Sarah, with her silver hair tied in a bun and her kind eyes behind glasses. Seeing me standing there with my suitcase, her expression changed from surprise to concern. "Emily, my God, what happened?" She said nothing else, simply opened her arms, and I collapsed into them. I cried like I had not cried in months. I cried for everything lost, for my son I no longer recognized, for the house I left behind, for the woman I used to be and almost forgot. Sarah held me without asking questions, letting me empty all the accumulated pain. When finally I could speak, I told her everything, every detail, every moment of brokenness. Sarah listened in silence, her face showing more indignation each time. When I finished my story, she took my hands and said with a firmness that comforted me, "You stay here as long as you need. This is your house now, and that son of yours and that viper of his wife are going to regret having treated you like this. You will see." I settled into Sarah's guest room. It was small but cozy, with light green curtains and a bed with a soft duvet. That night, I slept deeper than in months. There were no nightmares, no startles every time I heard a noise, only a peaceful and restorative sleep.
Meanwhile, in my old house, Michael and Linda were waking up to a new reality. I imagined the scene. Linda shouting my name, expecting the breakfast that never arrived. Michael going up to look for me and finding my empty room. The initial panic, the confusion, and finally finding the letter. I imagined them reading it, maybe even laughing at first, thinking it was a tantrum, and I would return soon. But something would tell them this time was different, that there was no turning back, that finally they had pushed too far, and the submissive mother, the convenient mother-in-law, had disappeared forever. And most importantly, now they would have to face the reality I had been sustaining alone all this time. The expenses, the responsibilities, the bills arriving every month, all that they took for granted while treating me like trash. Now it was their problem. The first week at Sarah's house was like waking up from a long and exhausting nightmare. Every morning I opened my eyes expecting to hear Linda's voice ordering me something, but there was only peaceful silence and birds singing outside. Sarah treated me with a sweetness I had forgotten existed, preparing coffee in the mornings and asking me how I had slept without expecting anything in return. "You do not have to do anything," she told me the third day when she found me washing breakfast dishes.
Just rest, Emily, recover. But I needed to feel useful. I needed to prove to myself I still had value beyond being someone's emotional punching bag. So I insisted on helping with household chores. But this time was different. I did it because I wanted to, not because they forced me. My phone started ringing the second day. It was Michael. I let it ring until it stopped. Then came the messages. First, they were confused. "Mom, where are you? We are worried." Then they became more urgent. "We need to talk. Please respond." And finally, they showed their true nature. "The bills are arriving. We do not know what to do. You have to come back." I did not answer any. Every message arriving was a confirmation I had made the right decision. They did not ask how I was, if I was okay, if I had a place to sleep or what to eat. They only worried about the bills, the responsibilities, everything I had been handling alone while they enjoyed my house like ungrateful parasites. Sarah told me Michael had gone looking for me at her house the fourth day. He rang the doorbell like crazy. She told me while we drank tea in her living room. I told him I did not know where you were, and even if I knew, I would not tell him. He looked desperate, Emily, but it was not the desperation of a son worried about his mother. It was the desperation of someone who just realized he lost his safety net. She was right. Michael's messages confirmed it. At first, they thought they could handle them alone. Michael's part-time job paid $800 a month. The house taxes were $1,200. Right there, the math did not work. And that was without counting electricity, water, gas, food, gasoline, and all the expenses Linda generated with her constant whims. Linda tried calling me once, just one. Her voice on the voicemail was icy. "Emily, I know you are being dramatic and seeking attention. When you finish with your tantrum, come home, but do not think this will change the rules. Things will continue to be as I say." I deleted the message, feeling a mix of indignation and satisfaction. She still understood nothing. She still believed she had control. In the second week, Sarah convinced me to block their numbers. "You do not need to read that, Emily. It only hurts you, and they do not deserve even a second more of your time." So I blocked Michael, I blocked Linda, and it was like finally closing a door that had been open, letting in cold drafts for months. I started to recover slowly. Sarah took me walking in the park every afternoon. At first, I got tired quickly. Months of constant stress had weakened my body more than I believed. But little by little, my strength returned. Something more important also returned: my smile. One day, Sarah took a photo of me while we fed ducks at the lake, and when I saw it, I was surprised. That smiling woman in the photo was me. But it had been so long since I looked like that, I almost did not recognize myself. "You look 10 years younger," Sarah commented. "It is incredible what peace of mind does." She was right. The wrinkles around my eyes seemed less deep. My posture was more upright. Even my voice sounded different, stronger and more sure.
I was finding myself again after months of being lost. Meanwhile, as I learned later from a neighbor Sarah found at the supermarket, things in my old house were crumbling rapidly. The first bill they could not pay was the taxes. The notice from the municipality arrived with the warning of seizure if they did not pay in 30 days. Michael tried to ask for a loan, but with his precarious job and no solid credit history, no bank lent to him. Linda began pressuring Michael to get more work. "How is it possible you cannot maintain a house?" she shouted at him, according to the neighbor who heard them fighting through open windows. "You are useless, just like your mother." The irony was delicious. Now, Michael was experiencing the same treatment I'd endured, and Linda showed her true nature without the filter she used when I was present. The water was next. By not paying 2 months in a row, they cut it. Suddenly, the house Linda had been redecorating with so much care had no water to bathe, to cook, to wash her expensive clothes. They had to carry buckets from a neighbor's house who took pity on them temporarily. The princess who mocked my old junk now carried water like in a rural village. Food became a problem. Linda was used to buying expensive organic products, premium meat cuts, imported cheeses. With $800 a month and bills piling up, those luxuries disappeared. They started eating cheap noodles and rice every day. The same Linda who controlled my every bite was now going hungry because of her own stupidity. Michael tried to get a second job, but nobody hired him. He was desperate, stressed, probably not sleeping well. And Linda, instead of supporting him, blamed him for everything. "This is your fault," she told him. "If you had been more of a man, if you had been able to support me, we would not be like this. Your mother ruined us by leaving." That part, the neighbor told me with indignation. "I threw it in your son's face that the fault was theirs, Emily. I told him they had treated their mother like trash, and now they were reaping what they sowed. You should have seen his face." I imagined the scene and felt a small satisfaction. It was not revenge I sought, it was justice, and justice was finally catching up to them. In the 3rd week, I received a certified letter. It was from a lawyer representing Michael. I opened the envelope with trembling hands, fearing the worst. The letter was a formal request for me to return to fulfill my family obligations and a veiled threat that if I did not do it, they would take legal actions to protect the family assets. I showed the letter to Sarah. She called her nephew immediately, who was a lawyer. He read it and laughed. "This has no legal validity. They cannot force her to live in her own house nor pay bills if she doesn't want to. In fact, they are the intruders from the moment she left. She has every right to evict them if she wants." Evict them? I had not thought about that. The house was still mine. It was in my name. I had left, but they had no legal right to stay there without my permission. Sarah's lawyer explained I could start an eviction process immediately. It would take about 2 months, but the house would be completely mine again. I thought about that all night. Did I want to get the house back? Did I want to return to that place full of recent bitter memories? The house where my son betrayed me? Where they hit me for trying to eat? Where I lost my dignity little by little? On the other hand, it was my house. The house I built with David, where we lived our best years. I decided to wait not out of weakness, but out of strategy. I wanted Michael and Linda to feel completely the weight of their actions. I wanted them to hit rock bottom to understand that the life I had been sustaining for them was not easy or free. And above all, I wanted Michael to wake up from Linda's manipulation and see what he had really lost. At the end of the month, the electricity cutoff notice arrived. The house was left completely in the dark. No water, no lights, with debts accumulating and no money to pay anything. The fantasy Linda had built crumbled, brick by brick, and Michael finally began to see the truth he had been avoiding for months.
It was in the 4th week when everything exploded definitively. Sarah arrived one afternoon with fresh news from her network of gossiping neighbors. "Emily, you are not going to believe what happened," she said with eyes shining with excitement. "Linda left Michael. She left the house with her suitcases and told him he was a failure who could not even keep a roof over their heads. I stood paralyzed, processing the information. Linda had abandoned Michael, the woman who swore to love him in good times and bad, who manipulated him to betray his own mother, who turned him into her obedient puppet, had left him the moment he stopped being useful to her. The irony was so perfect, it almost hurt. "And Michael?" I asked without being able to avoid it. Despite everything he had done to me, he was still my son, and a part of me still worried about him. "He is destroyed," Sarah responded. "The neighbor says he cries all day. The house is a mess. No lights or water. He is still there like a ghost, not knowing what to do." That night, I could not sleep. I imagined Michael alone in that dark house, probably hungry, without money, abandoned by the woman for whom he sacrificed his mother. A part of me wanted to run to help him, hug him, like when he was a boy and had nightmares. But another part, the part that had grown during these weeks, knew that if I did it, I would be validating everything he did to me. I would be telling him he could treat me like trash, and I would always be there to pick up the pieces. On the 5th day after Linda left, Michael appeared at Sarah's house. He arrived at dusk, haggard and dirty, with deep dark circles and wrinkled clothes. Sarah notified me through the intercom. "He is here. Do you want to see him?" My heart beat fast. This was the moment I had been avoiding and anticipating at the same time. "Tell him to come in," I answered with a trembling voice. I sat in the living room waiting for him, trying to prepare myself for what would come. When he entered, I almost did not recognize him. My son, who had always been meticulous with his appearance, looked like a vagabond. He had a beard of several days, greasy and disheveled hair, a stained shirt, but what impacted me most were his eyes. They were red and swollen, full of pain I knew very well. "Mom," he said with a broken voice. That word I had not heard from his lips in months sounded strange and familiar at the same time. He stood at the entrance of the living room, as if he didn't know if he had permission to approach. I said nothing. I only looked at him, waiting, needing him to take the first step, to say what he had to say. "I'm sorry," he whispered finally.
I am so sorry, Mom. You were right about everything. About Linda, about what she was doing to me, about what we did to you. Tears began to roll down his cheeks, leaving clean tracks on his dirty face. I was an idiot. I was the worst son in the world. I treated you like trash when you only gave me love all my life. I wanted to run to him, hug him, tell him everything was forgiven. But I sat firm. "And what changed, Michael?" I asked, with a calm but cold voice. "Do you apologize because you really understand what you did, or because Linda left you and now you are alone?" The question floated in the air like a sharp knife. Michael collapsed, literally fell to his knees on the living room floor, sobbing like a child. "You were right. I realized everything when she left. She told me I was useless, that I never was worth anything, that she only tolerated me because she thought you would have more money. She said she wasted her time with me." His words came out broken between sobs. "And while she told me all that, the only thing I could think of was how I told you exactly the same thing. How I treated you worse than a stranger. She hit my hand for trying to eat in my own house," I said, without emotion in my voice. "And you told her she was the owner of the house, that even to breathe I needed her permission. Do you remember that, Michael?" He nodded without being able to look at me. Shame painted in every line of his face. "Every day I think about that," he said through tears. "Every day I hate myself for having said those words. Dad must be rolling in his grave for what I became. I betrayed everything you taught me. I betrayed the only person who was always there for me. His pain was real. I could see it. But pain did not erase months of abuse and humiliation. Do you know what I felt that night? I asked him, and for the first time, my voice trembled. I felt my son had died, that the boy I raised, that I cared for, that I loved with all my heart had disappeared, and in his place was a cruel stranger. I died 1,000 times in those months, Michael. 1,000 times I wished not to wake up every morning because the pain of living in my own house, being treated like that, was unbearable. I know, Mom. I know. And I have no excuses, he said finally, raising his gaze toward me. Linda manipulated me, but I let her. I chose to believe her instead of you. I decided every day to treat you badly because it was easier than confronting her. I am completely guilty, and I do not expect you to forgive me. I just needed you to know I finally understand. Finally, I see everything I lost. We remained in silence for a long moment. Sarah had disappeared discreetly, leaving us alone. I looked at my son, kneeling on the floor, shattered and repentant, and felt a mix of emotions so complex I could not separate them. Love, pain, rage, compassion, everything mixed in an impossible knot in my chest. Apologies are not enough, I said finally. You cannot destroy a person for months and expect a few tears to fix everything. Michael nodded. I know. I am not asking you to come back or forgive me now. I just needed you to know I am sorry, and you are right to hate me. I don't hate you, Michael, I admitted, feeling my own tears beginning to form. That is the worst of all. After everything you did to me, I still love you because you are my son. But I no longer trust you. I no longer know if I will ever be able to trust you again. Those words broke us both, because that was the most painful truth that existed between us. What are you going to do now? I asked him after a moment. Michael shrugged, defeated. I don't know. The house is without lights or water. I owe 3 months of taxes and 2 of utilities. My job barely pays to eat. I will probably end up losing the house anyway. There was acceptance in his voice, as if he knew he deserved to lose everything. It's my house, Michael, I reminded him softly. It's in my name. You are not going to lose it because technically it was never yours. I saw him process that information, realizing another layer of his stupidity. He had fought for a house that wasn't even his legally. He had betrayed his mother for something he never had. I can start the eviction process if I want. My lawyer says in 2 months you would be out and the house would be completely mine again. I saw fear cross his face. Are you going to do it? His voice was barely a whisper. I don't know yet. I don't know yet, I answered honestly. Part of me wants to get my house back. Another part never wants to return to that place full of painful memories. Michael stayed silent, not daring to ask for anything, not expecting anything. That humility, that acceptance of the consequences of his acts was new.
Maybe for the first time in his life, he was facing reality without anyone protecting him. Sarah prepared you something to eat, I told him, pointing toward the kitchen. Go eat something. You look terrible. I do not deserve your kindness, he said, without moving. Probably not, I agreed, but I am not being kind for you. I do it because I am not like Linda. I do not abandon people when they are at their worst, even when they have hurt me. It was a silent lesson, a demonstration of the difference between real love and the manipulation he confused for so long.
Michael ate in silence in the kitchen, while I remained in the living room, processing everything. When he finished, he stood at the door, ready to leave. "Thank you for listening to me, Mom, and thank you for the food. I know I do not deserve any of this." I nodded without saying anything else. I saw him walk away down the street with his shoulders slumped, a shadow of the man he used to be. 2 months passed since that visit from Michael. 2 months in which I had to make the most difficult decisions of my life. I did not return to the house immediately. I needed time to heal, to recover the pieces of myself I had lost in those months of torment. Sarah was my anchor during that whole process, reminding me every day I deserved respect and dignity. Michael did not appear again, but sent short messages every week. He asked for nothing, just updates. I got a second job at a gas station. I paid the water. It works again. I cleaned the whole house. It is like you liked it. They were simple messages showing genuine effort for the first time in a long time, but I was still not ready to answer. It was Sarah's lawyer who finally helped me see things clearly. "Mrs. Emily, that house is yours. You have 3 options. Get it back and live there again. Get it back and sell it to start over somewhere else. Or keep it and rent it while you live elsewhere. But what you cannot do is let fear decide for you." He was right. I had fled my house, but I was still letting that place control me. I was still a prisoner, although I was no longer physically there. So I made a decision. I would return, but on my own terms. The house was mine, and it was time to claim it completely. I asked the lawyer to prepare a legal document. It was not an eviction, but an agreement. Michael could keep the house under very specific conditions. He would pay a symbolic rent of $200 monthly that would go straight to a savings account in his name. So when he was ready, he could become truly independent. He had to keep the house in perfect condition, and more importantly, he had to attend therapy to work on how he had been manipulated and on how to repair our relationship. When I presented the document to Michael in a neutral coffee shop, his hands trembled reading it. "You are giving me another chance?" he asked, with eyes full of tears. "It is not a chance, Michael," I clarified with a firm voice. "It is a contractual agreement. If you fail on any of these points, you leave the house immediately and without discussion. Do you understand?" "I understand," he nodded with fervor. "And, Mom, about the rent money, I can pay you more. Now I have 2 jobs." I interrupted him, raising my hand. "It is not about the money. It is about you learning to value things, to understand nothing is free and actions have consequences. The $200 are symbolic but important." He signed the document without hesitation, but I did not return to the house yet. Instead, I decided to stay with Sarah a few months more. I needed Michael to demonstrate with actions, not just words, that he had really changed. And to my surprise, he did. He sent photos of the cleaned house every week, receipts of utility payments, even certificates of his therapy sessions. In his therapy, as he told me later, he finally processed how Linda had manipulated him, how she identified his insecurities, his unemployment, his vulnerability, and used them to turn him into her puppet, how she isolated his mother from him systematically until he could no longer see reality. The therapist made him understand that although he had been manipulated, he was still responsible for his actions. That distinction was crucial. 3 months after signing the agreement, I finally returned to my house. Michael received me at the door, visibly nervous. The house was impeccable. He had cleaned every corner, had repaired things that were broken. He even put fresh flowers in the vase at the entrance, the one Linda had thrown in the trash and he recovered. "Welcome home, Mom," he said, with a trembling voice. I walked through the rooms, seeing all the changes. My favorite armchair was back in its original place.
The photographs Linda had put away were back on the walls. My closet had all my clothes perfectly organized. He had erased every trace of Linda from the house, as if she had never existed. But most importantly was that he had recovered the spirit of home the house had before. It no longer felt like a prison, but like a refuge. "You did a good job," I told him, and saw his shoulders relax with relief. "Thank you for giving me this opportunity, Mom. I know I do not deserve it, but I swear I am not going to disappoint you." The following months were of slow reconstruction. Michael and I did not go back to being what we were before, because that was impossible. Something had broken between us that can never be repaired completely. But we built something new, something different. A relationship based on mutual respect, on clear limits, on honesty. I was no longer the mother who did everything for her son and the son who took it for granted. We were two adults learning to live with the scars of the past. Michael worked hard at his 2 jobs. He saved every penny he could. 6 months after the agreement, he came home with news. "Mom, I think I am ready to look for my own apartment. I have saved enough for the deposit and the first month of rent." I felt a mix of pride and relief. "Are you sure?" I asked him. "Completely sure. It is time I become truly independent. It is time I prove I can live my own life without being a burden to anyone." The day Michael moved to his small apartment, I helped him pack. It was strange and bittersweet. This time the separation was healthy, necessary, chosen for the right reasons. "Visit me often," I told him, while he loaded the last box into his car. "And Mom," he responded, hugging me. "Thank you for not giving up on me, even when you gave me all the reasons in the world to do so." Now I live alone in my house, as it always should have been after David died. Sarah comes to visit me 3 times a week, and sometimes we stay up late talking and laughing. Michael comes to dinner every Sunday. Our relationship is not perfect, but it is real and is built on honest foundations. He is still in therapy, working on his problems. I also started therapy to heal the wounds those months left me. Sometimes I think about Linda and wonder where she is. According to what I heard, she found another vulnerable man with money and is repeating the same pattern. I hope that person has the strength Michael did not have to escape in time. But it is no longer my problem nor my concern. She is a closed chapter in our lives. What I learned from this whole experience is that love without respect is not love. It is disguised abuse. That family does not give you the right to mistreat. That sometimes moving away from the people you love is the only way to save yourself and give them the opportunity to grow. And above all, I learned that it is never too late to recover your dignity, no matter how long you have lost it. My house is my sanctuary again. The walls no longer hold echoes of humiliation, but of music I play when I want, of laughter with Sarah, of honest conversations with Michael when he comes to visit. I recovered my life. I recovered my space. And most importantly, I recovered myself. That night when I tried to open the refrigerator and received a slap seems now like a distant bad dream. A reminder of how low a person can fall when they forget their value. But it is also a reminder of the strength I found when I finally said enough. When I chose my well-being over the fear of loneliness. I'm 62 years old, and I'm starting over. Some would say it is late to start again, but I know it is never too late to choose dignity. It is never too late to reclaim your life, and never is it too late to remember you deserve respect, especially in your own house, especially from the people who say they love you. This is my story. It is not a story of revenge, but of recovery. It is not about punishing, but about healing. And if someone who is going through something similar reads this, I want them to know this. You have the power to change your situation. You may be afraid, you may feel weak, but inside you there is a strength you do not even imagine. You just need to take the first step. The rest comes later. Today, I open my refrigerator when I want. I eat when I am hungry, I breathe without asking for permission, and every time I do these simple things, I remember the price I paid for this freedom. And I smile, because finally, after all, I came back home. not only to the physical house, but to my inner peace.